Hey everybody, welcome to the fourth and final workshop of our mentor program. I am so sad that this is our final workshop, but I'm so excited for you all to jump into this final workshop. We've got a lot to cover this evening. We've got an amazing guest speaker for you this evening. I think you're going to really enjoy this. Now, this workshop is all about how to make the most out of that first internship. How do you make the most of that first internship or first job? Maybe you're jumping into a full-time job, you're a senior, you're graduating, maybe you're hopefully jumping into an internship. Even if you're not jumping into an internship, maybe you're working on a part-time job that you want to make the most out of for the summer. That's okay too. This workshop is all about how can you make the most out of that first opportunity over the summer so that you can really set yourself apart. By the way, if you have a part-time job and you don't have an internship, there are plenty of ways that you can go about setting yourself apart in that part-time job that could lead to internships down the road. Seriously, do not settle and do not sell yourself short for the network that you could create from any particular opportunity. I know that I could tell you that back in the day when I was a server and bartender, I met plenty of people that ultimately opened up doors for opportunities that I ended up taking advantage of later. You never know who you will meet, even in the jobs you think are not your main thing. It's understandable, but leverage it. Don't ever write any potential connection off. So, as you all know, my name's Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. This workshop's going to be about 50 minutes long. Please ask any questions you have. If you have any questions in the comment section, as you all know, I'm gonna ask 3 questions during the duration of this workshop. Your job is to answer them within 24 hours of this workshop going live. I don't necessarily know exactly what the questions are going to be. I always prompt them based on our guest speaker. Sometimes I'll slip in an intro question during this segment here. It just depends how I'm feeling for the day. So I'm so excited for you all to jump in, learn from our guest this evening. I'm so excited to learn your answers to the questions that we ask you, and I'm so excited to engage with you all. Now, I really want to set the expectations. As you all know, you're not going to get an internship handed to you on a silver platter. That's just not how this program works. Now, by the way, have students landed opportunities at Google, major investment banks, major engineering firms, major marketing firms? Absolutely, happens all the time. But have they done that as a result of meeting with their mentor, taking advantage of the things that they've learned through this program? Yeah, absolutely. But if you think this is going to get handed to you on a silver platter, I think you already know by now that's just not how this program works. You have to work for the things that you get. Now, this platform can be a springboard for you to get to where you want to be. Leverage this as an opportunity to really launch your early career path. Absolutely, yes, this is something that can really do make a huge impact on you getting to where you want to be. But this is not a handout. This is not something that is just given to you. This program could be critical to you really setting yourself apart compared to your peers. Take advantage of it. I really think that you're going to enjoy what we have to say in this workshop this evening. Now, I really want to talk about the intentionality of feelings, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, how you make someone feel in a given moment is going to really impact how they feel about you down the line. So I want you to just take a quick moment on a piece of paper or on your phone. I want you to identify, how do you want other people to feel about you? So when you're going into that first job, that first internship, that first part-time job, how do you want your boss? How do you want your colleagues? How do you want your peers? How do you want other people to feel about you? Write it in the comment section. Write it down on a piece of paper. I want to know, how do you want other people to feel about you? Because that intentionality is so key. It is so key, because here's the thing. If you don't write this down, if you don't set out an intention for how you want other people to feel about you, they are going to perceive you in any which way that you may feel on that given day. And that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. If you're having an off day and you're thinking to yourself like, oh man, like, I'm having a rough day, you can let that spew on other people. It happens all the time. And people come up with excuses for it. You might say, hey, my dog died earlier today, or I just found out my grandma's got cancer, having a rough day. And don't get me wrong, there's not an excuse for having a rough day, but you've got to be able to realize that as a professional, you've got to put on multiple different hats to get yourself in the zone to make the most out of it. So no matter what's going on with your world, you can't let your personal world affect your business world. And if you do, it's going to potentially negatively impact the way that other people feel about you. But if you set an intention right now about how you want other people to feel about you, you're going to put yourself in a much better situation. If you think to yourself, I want people to think about me as dependable and reliable and someone that's always upbeat, confident and excited when it comes to work, it doesn't matter what's going on with your outside world. Even if the worst thing could have possibly happened in your outside personal world, if you set yourself an intention right now that that's how you want other people to feel about you, when you come into work, you're going to straighten yourself up because you've already identified, I don't want people to feel sad, bad, or like that I'm a charity case because I've got other things going on in my outside world. You want other people to feel like you are a rock, that you are someone that they can go to, that you are someone that's always showing up professionally. Boom. You will get yourself into the mindset ready to be successful. Now that leads to the 3 keys that we cover in every workshop for success in this mentor program, which is strategy, story, and state. And as I just said, it doesn't matter what's going on in your outside world. It doesn't matter what the state of the world is. If you are a rock, if you are someone that physically comes into a state conducive for being successful every single time, you will be successful. I promise you that. So what I want to do right now is I want to get you into a state conducive for being successful. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy it out. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. On the count of 3, scream 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out. Let it loose. Let it go. You're getting yourself pumping. You're getting blood flowing to your brain. You're releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself ready to be successful. The reason why that is so key is because no matter what is going on in your world, you can drive your emotions with your motions. Your motions drive your emotions, meaning that if you get out, you move, you do a power pose, you get crazy, you can get yourself in a state conducive for other people wanting to be around you. You can get yourself feeling good, even if you don't want to feel good. Even if you think to yourself, I just want to remorse for a little bit. I just want to be sad for a little bit. You can be sad on your own time, but when it comes to work time, you step your game up. And the way that you step your game up, you get your emotions and you turn them into positive emotions. I can tell you that right now. Even when you don't want to feel on your best self, your emotions can get yourself into an emotional state conducive for being successful, even if it's only for a temporary period of time. I promise you, your emotions, getting moving, getting running, getting going, getting just shaken out, will get yourself successful. And that will be a huge catalyst for you being successful on the job, standing apart from other people. Because everyone else is going to wonder, like, man, how are you able to stay upbeat, positive, just like a go-to person every single time while other people are taking sick days or just having off days? And you can tell, everyone can tell. It's because you are making an intention to be that way before you come into work every single day. It's critical. Now, the next key is your story. What's the story you tell yourself? Now, that's a big point of the intentionality. What is the story you tell yourself for why you're going to be successful? If you tell yourself a negative story like, hey, you know what? I don't deserve to be here. I'm not qualified. I'm just honestly, I don't even know why I'm in the room. If that's a story you tell yourself, that is the outcome that will be perceived by other people. But if you tell yourself a story, man, I can do this, I can make an impact, I can learn from these people, I can engage, I can be the energetic person who does what it takes, works the hardest to get to where I need to be. If you come in with that mentality, you can be successful. Now, the last key is your strategy. What are you going to do to make sure that you set yourself apart from your peers? Now, there's a few things that we talk about with our guest speaker, but there's a few things that I would love to discuss with you right now. The first one is what is focal is causal. This is popularized by the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini. Essentially, what it means is that whatever is seen is perceived, which means that it is all optics. By that, I mean, if your supervisor, if your boss, if your CEO sees you showing up early for work, working hard on projects, taking initiative, they will attribute the success of the entire intern team to you. But if they see you on your phone, on social media, doing something lazy, just doing things that are not, like spreading gossip at the water cooler, not working when you should be working, anything that could be perceived as negative, if they see that, they will perceive that just as likely as they do the hardworking stuff. So it is really critical that whatever people see about you, whoever you want to make sure that you impress, that they see the type of person that you want to portray, and that they do not see the type of person you do not want to portray. You will think to yourself, man, I wonder how does XYZ person get promoted over another person? I can tell you how. It's that they are seen doing good work while the other people are not seen doing good work. Make sure that you're seen doing good work. In fact, what I always find the most interesting about this research of Dr. Robert Cialdini is its extrapolation to other areas of life. What he's observed in his research is that when cameras, especially in police interrogations, are facing any particular person, whether that be the police officer or the suspect, when the camera is facing the person, one particular person, a jury is much more likely to attribute negative feelings towards that person if the camera is facing them. So if the camera is facing a suspect in an interrogation, the jury is much more likely to attribute guilt on the party of the suspect than they are to think that the cop is asking leading questions, trying to get an answer that may not actually exist. However, flip it around. When the camera is facing the police officer, not the suspect, the likelihood that the jury is going to think that the cop, the police officer, is asking leading questions, trying to get an answer that may not actually be essentially the guilt of the person who's under interrogation, it essentially increases substantially more. The point I'm trying to make is that when what people see is what they perceive. So at the end of the day, if God forbid you're ever in a police interrogation situation and you notice that the camera is rolling, at the best you want to make sure that the camera is side by side equally to you both, or not facing you and facing the police officer. It's crazy how much of an impact that has on how people perceive other people. But more importantly, as it pertains to the workplace, make sure that people see you doing good work and not see you doing bad work. It's not a tit for tat type of thing. One bad deed is about 10 good deeds worth. You have to really, really make sure that you're not seen doing anything bad, or you are going to be on the shit list of your supervisor. And that's not a place you want to be. So the next thing that I want to talk about is this theory called the next in line theory. Essentially what this says is that when somebody is talking or about to speak, their likelihood of retaining any information before or after their speech is very low. So if you know that your supervisor is about to give a presentation, or someone that you really look up to, maybe you are about to see a keynote speaker, you're thinking to yourself, I love this keynote speaker, I love what he or she has to say, I want to go up to him or her after their speech. Bad idea. Here's why. People, when they speak, are much more likely to think about what they just said if they just finished giving a speech, or what they're about to say if they're about to give a speech. Their likelihood of retaining any new information is very minimal. So therefore, you need to give the person you're trying to make a positive impression to a leeway period before you bring up new information to them, because that will increase the likelihood that your message is actually going to resonate in their mind. But if you come up to them right before a speech or right after a speech that they just gave or are about to give, their likelihood of remembering what you said, very low. So just something to keep in mind. This also applies to a boss who's giving a speech, any colleague that's giving a speech, anybody who's about to speak publicly for anything. Make sure you don't talk to them immediately before or afterwards, because they're not going to remember what you said. So the last thing that I want to touch on is this concept called matching and mirroring. This is a great key for building rapport in the workplace, especially for someone who's got negative body language. So I think we've touched on this before in the past, but you should not have your arms crossed when you're at the workplace. It conveys that you're closed off and that you're not open to learning new information. But there's a lot of people that have bad body language in the workplace. There's going to be a lot of people that will cross their arms to you. Can you cross back? The answer is yes. And I know this might sound crazy, but people feel a subconscious connection to others that they are similar to. And this can be in your mannerisms and your speed of speech. Not your dialect of speech, but your speed of speech. So if somebody has a very thick Southern accent and you try to emulate that Southern accent, but you don't actually have a Southern accent, they're going to sniff that out immediately. It's going to be perceived as inauthentic. But if someone's talking really quickly and you're saying, I'm going to work on that, boss, I'm going to make sure I get that done, I'm going to work on it right away, they're going to think to themselves like, man, here's a sense of urgency, someone who's really with it. That's awesome. But instead, if you respond by saying, yeah, boss, I will get to it, and I will make sure that I get those assignments complete, they're going to be thinking to themselves, what the heck is wrong with this kid? Like, what does he not like get it? The sense of urgency? It's crazy how your speed of speech is actually perceived so similar together. So if you notice that someone talks really quickly or really slowly, following their speed of speech, matching and mirroring their speed of speech can actually help you build rapport with them. The other key is other body language. So like I said, crossing your arms. If someone's playing with their chin, you can play with your chin. Don't try to be overly obvious about it, but you can do it subtly. So if someone's playing with their ear, you can play with your ear. And I know it may sound crazy, but you can try this with a friend who's never heard this before. Go up to them, see if they've got any mannerisms. Maybe they're using their hands like this a lot. Emulate those hand gestures, and then all of a sudden introduce a new gesture. All of a sudden, maybe start playing with your nose. It could be any gesture, honestly. Start playing with your nose. Do it. First, emulate their hand gestures for about 5 minutes. Then introduce a new gesture. Watch what happens. They're going to start playing with their nose. They're going to start emulating the new gesture that you have now introduced. It's crazy. It's fascinating how it works, but it builds rapport between other people in the work environment. I think those are some really critical tips for you to know. The last thing that I want to leave you with is the 30 and 90-day rule. The 30-day rule is for an internship. When you first get into an internship, this is, by the way, this was, by the way, a Fortune 500 CEO taught me this tip. And that was, when you first go into an internship, meet with your supervisor and ask him or her the question, what did the best intern you ever have do to set themselves apart? On the very first day, ask that question. They're going to tell you exactly what they want you to do to set yourself apart. For the next 30 days, go ahead and do it. Don't complain. Don't ask questions. Don't share any professional goals you've got for yourself. Just go ahead, put your head down, work hard. After 30 days, you have built credibility with this person. You can then say, hey, boss, would you be open to having a conversation? I would love to share with you some of my professional goals. Boom. That's where you share some of your professional goals. That's where you say, hey, I'm interested in connecting with people in these areas or these types of fields or these types of industries. And because you've earned credibility, they will help you get there. Why? Because you've earned that credibility. But if on day one you ask for that and you've earned no credibility, they're not going to do it. Or if they do, they're going to only do it on a light version. You're not going to get the full force of how they could possibly help connect you. That is something that's really critical. 90-day rule is the exact same thing, but for a full-time job. You get a little bit longer to really build that credibility with your supervisor and your employer. So those are key tips. The last thing I want to just really mention is really starting to help you get into a routine. I know that the best way to learn anything is to actually teach it. So what I want you to do is I want you to find somebody. This could be a friend. It could be a peer. It could be a classmate. It could be anybody. Teach them something that you learned in this program. Teach them anything you learned in this program. We know that students who tell at least, we know that students who tell at least 20 people something that they learned in this program, that their likelihood of landing the job, the internship, getting to a graduate degree increases exponentially. We know that the more people a student tells, the more likely they're able to do that. What we've identified as 20 is that magic number. And this doesn't necessarily have to be you teaching them a full seminar of anything we taught. It could be literally you bringing up casually in conversation, like, hey, I learned about this thing called matching and mirroring. It's really fascinating. Boom, that's it. That's one person. Or multiple people if you're in a group. But what we've learned is that the more people you tell, the more likely you are actually going to retain this information, the more likely you are going to actually apply it into your professional life, and the more likely you are actually to achieve the goals you have set for yourself professionally. It's crazy how it works. It's a network effect. It really does make an impact. So I want to challenge you that after this workshop, you go out, you identify a friend, you teach them something you learned in this program, and its likelihood of sticking increases exponentially. I really want to challenge you to do that. This is our final workshop. I'm really excited for what you are able to accomplish over the summer. I would really encourage you to be in the program next semester. You're going to get a new mentor. We're going to have new speakers. We're going to talk about new content. I think you're going to really enjoy it and really springboard your career into another level. I think you're going to really enjoy that. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of this workshop. I look forward to seeing you on the next part.
Welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to dive into our topic, how to handle conflict in the workplace. So whether you're a student right now, whether you're recently graduated, maybe you've been in a job before, maybe you've been in a job for many years, conflict is inevitable. Now, there's some things as healthy conflict where we can work through things effectively to challenge each other to be better. And sometimes it's unhealthy conflict where it leads to drama and gossip and things that just make the workplace unbearable, super toxic, and not so fun to be around. Well, fortunately, we've got a great guest with us here this evening. We've got Tonya Pullen. Tonya, you've worked in the professional world for a very long time. You've had a lot of experiences working with a variety of different companies and teams. I'm really excited to learn your perspective this evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's kick this off. Can you share an example of when you've had to handle conflict at work? What happened? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What did you learn from it?
Sure. It's hard because what I'm going to tell each of you is, like Garrett just mentioned, we all have to handle conflict at some point in our careers, in our life, whether it be professional or personal, conflict exists. And And I think you have to learn to grow from your experiences. And from that, I've had many leaders in my career in retail of 24 years. And I think I learned from that experience the leaders that I really could take some key nuggets from. And I also learned from leaders that I felt like I never want to exactly handle things that way. And but I want to share one experience, and this was actually recent in the past 2 years. Um, I had a new leader that seemed very excited to have me on board and on her team. I want to mention that through the interview process, other leaders kind of transitioned me to her team. So I wasn't quite selected for the role by her. So I wasn't her chosen candidate for the role. And believe it or not, I think that's where the conflict started.
Did you
I
feel
didn't see
like
it.
a stepchild almost?
Yeah, almost. Yeah, exactly. Um, I was excited. I was excited to be on the team. If you know my personality, I'm very bubbly, and I felt like this leader who was a female. She took me under her wing. She was teaching me things, and I was actually doing a really great job. But later, about a year and a half in, and I'm going to skip forward because this is where the more of the conflict started happening, is that I started kind of raising my hand for different different roles. So I could excel more in my role and show my leadership team I might be ready and prepared for the next level. I was in the process of getting my MBA. I was learning a lot of skills that I felt was preparing me for that next role. So I met with her, shared with her my interest, telling her I wanted to raise my hand. And what I was finding out is that she was bypassing me and not giving me any of the new opportunities, and she was taking them on herself, which was fine. I can't make my leader, share with me. And then
Why do you think she did that? Do you think she was like a micromanager?
So this is what I'm going to tell you that I learned from the experience. I don't know that it was micromanaging as much as I think that we will all run across leaders who might feel a little threatened by either our education, the work that we're doing, um, and I think that's where it started from. Is that um, you know wherever I was kind of stepping on her territory. And you don't get that all the time. Well, I'm going to say like 80% of leaders want you to be successful and they're going to back you. But there are those leaders that want to kind of stall you from moving forward. And I will tell you, I do also think sometimes they don't want to lose you, right? Not only are they maybe not threatened by you, but they know your talent and they see what you're doing to help keep their business going, that they don't want to lose you. So sometimes they might hold you back.
That's interesting. I think I call it the Shawshank Redemption type of leader, where if you have you seen the movie Shawshank Redemption?
Yes.
You got Andy Dufresne, and he's doing the taxes and the accounting and all these other services for the warden. And in exchange, the warden says, "Oh, I'll pardon your time. I'll give you shortened sentence." And then all of a sudden, the warden's like, "Screw this! I can't live without you, Andy. I got to keep you here." And Andy says, "Okay, I'm out." And he crawled through the tunnel and made his way out. But the point is, when you have a leader that has a scarcity mindset instead of a growth mindset, they're thinking to themselves, I don't want to go through the discomfort of hiring someone new, bringing someone on, training them up to where you're at. So I want to stifle your growth, or I'm threatened by you and your fast rise. And maybe I feel a little insecure myself in my own positioning. Maybe I got up here a little fast and now I'm not in a good position to really defend you off if you potentially rise to my ranks. And so I want to beat you down. Is that kind of how you felt?
I did. And, through additional experiences that, happy to share, I think I did learn that it was a little bit more I think it was a little bit more feeling threatened just based off some feedback that I received. But, you know, now in hindsight, what I would say is that maybe I wished I would have approached conversations differently. And I'm not saying I'm at fault. I'm not saying the leader was at fault, but I'm saying somewhere I think some channels were crossed, and maybe, she didn't feel like I wanted her to be the person to help promote me. Um, or there were challenges that she was having that I couldn't see. And I know that's a conversation we're going to have, here a little bit later, Garrett, is what are the hidden things that you don't even know that's happening in the background?
Good point. I love that you have this empathetic mentality about conflict, because that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with. I think when we have conflict with someone, we judge ourselves on our intentions and others on our perceptions, and we think, oh, this person's a jerk. They want to sabotage my day. They got blah, 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 and they don't want to let me thrive or grow here. And so they're a jerk and they're a bad person. And it's like, well, hold on a second. We have no idea what kind of pressures they're being under, whether they be personally or professionally. Maybe they got something going on at home. Maybe their boss has got these other things where they've said, hey, if you make this mistake, you or your team make this mistake, it's a fireable offense. And so therefore they might have said, okay, don't get me wrong, Tonya, I want to put you in this position to thrive and succeed, but my boss has told me if we mess this up, it's my job, and I don't want to lose my job. Don't get me wrong, I want to trust you with this assignment, but there's the consequences, the stakes are too high for that. And maybe that's what's going on.
I think that's fair. And I think those are the things that we don't see maybe when we're in a new position. Maybe we're, we've been in the career for a long time, but we're only like a senior manager level, right? And then you've got higher leadership levels. The things that we don't see are the conversations that other leaders are having that honestly they need to shield us from, right? They don't want to bring us in because there may be consequences or steps or just things that we don't need to know right at that time, but maybe we see it later.
Yeah. How do you go about having an empathetic and open-minded position? And how do you go about not being so defensive in that scenario? Like, I feel like in the situation you just laid out, I would have felt really frustrated. I would have judged them as a human and not as the situation that was being presented at me. Which, by the way, I think is very natural. I think it's very easy to get defensive. How did you go about taking a step back, taking a deep breath, and having a more curious, empathetic approach to the situation?
Well, I'm going to tell you at the very beginning, I was by myself, and I think I just probably screamed, shouted, and had those first emotions like, how can this person do this to me? But then I think you have to settle yourself down and you have to bring yourself back to a little bit of reality and say, okay, I need to maybe phone a friend. I need someone to kind of talk me off that emotional ledge. Someone who's going to say, I hear you, Tonya, but I think that you need to see it from some different perspectives too. And then after you hear these different perspectives, then you just need to take some time to cool off and really digest it and maybe reevaluate it the next day. And I'm going to say, if it's something you can handle the day after, almost like you've slept on it, it's the best. I learned very early on, I would get, in my earlier career, I'd get really upset and get ready to send an email and realize I just should not be sending that email. And I would just put it in a box. I'd come back to it the next day and realize this is not a way to talk to someone. I'm coming at this from a very emotional perspective, not a realistic perspective. And so just like that, I would say take that into perspective. Never send an email angry. I would say never take a conflict that could wait until the next day take that time, take that space, think about it.
That's a great bit of wisdom there, Tonya. I love that. I love to ask the students a question. Post in the comment section. How do you handle conflict in the workplace? What's your process for handling it? I know Tonya just said sleep on it. Personally, I also love the sleep on it methodology because I can be steamed and heated about something, and then all of a sudden come back the next day with an open mind and be like, you know what, it wasn't that crazy. I was overreacting and can recognize where I was at fault. And that's probably even personally, like personal relationships and professional relationships, was probably a healthy bit of wisdom there.
Yeah, I think you'll grow if you're able to do that. And then let's say the conflict maybe cannot wait. I still think you need to just take some time, whether it be 5, 10 minutes, go to a quiet place. And I think you need to really ask yourself, what is the situation? What is truly happening? If I'm to take the emotion out of this, what are the facts? And then how do I need to approach the situation? I think it's just like if you were doing an interview or you're doing anything in life, I think there's those key questions that you ask yourself that you can take some time, digest that, and then approach it differently than you would if you were in an emotional state.
Yeah, but I want to distinguish between this because I think some students might be thinking like, okay, cool. If I'm really steamed, I'll sleep on it. But then sleeping on it can go from 1 day to 2 days to 5 days to a week to a month and multiple months. And then all of a sudden you have an explosion and you've just been building this up and building this up. The best example I've seen of this is at the performance review from a manager to a direct report where they see something that frustrated them like 5 months ago, but they didn't say a word about it, never mentioned it once. And then the direct report comes in the performance review thinking like, oh, my manager's going to really give me high marks and everything's going to go great. And then you get in there and just bam, blasted. It's like, oh, I've been meaning to tell you this is something that really irritates me. And you're now on a performance improvement plan, or you're not really meeting my expectations in this area. It's like, I've been doing it this way for 5 months. Why wouldn't you tell me immediately? So I guess what is the right buffer time period to start confronting somebody about the issues you're having? And is there a good way about going about doing that?
I think there is a good way about going about doing it. I think one, making sure that you are taking the time to have a conversation or a meeting planner with your leader, right? Let them know ahead of time you want to discuss some things. I don't think you can let an evaluation build up. Now, what if like you said, what if the leader comes in and they've had a problem with something I've been doing for 5 months? Well, I think it goes twofold. One, shame on the leader for not preparing you ahead of time and letting you continue on with it. But I think two, you can say, this is what I've been doing. I didn't understand that this was the wrong way or this was not your expectation, but I need you to give me clear communication of how I'm going to change this going forward. And so I think it goes both ways. Leaders sometimes don't see things coming, but I'm going to tell you, you should be having a conversation. Neither the leader walking into the room nor the employee coming in for an evaluation should be surprised on the conversation they're having.
Absolutely. So, but let's go back to your scenario. So you are in a scenario, your boss is, you told your boss, hey, I'm looking for some advancement opportunities. I'm ready I'm ready for the Catalina wine mixer. And your boss says, yeah, sure, whatever. And then she proceeds to not let you take on those opportunities. When is the right time to approach her about that? And how do you go about approaching her? Or rather, what actually happened? What should have happened? Let's ask it like that.
Okay, can I tell you the story of what happened and how the conflict rose?
Oh, fun, yeah.
Okay, so she knew that I wanted to promote, and I had a senior vice president who I was working on a project tell me that she would love to tour a store with me. And I went on a tour, and at the very end of the tour, this senior leader looked at me and said, you don't seem curious. And I feel like there's some difference of opinion of what I'm hearing from your boss and what your boss is saying about you versus you and I and our conversation.
This is with your boss's boss.
Yeah, no, with another leader of the company.
Okay.
So that right there told me that my leader, my boss, was telling another leader some differences of what I bring to another team and what I bring to my current team.
In a bad or a good way?
In a bad way.
Okay, got it. Yep, now I'm tracking. Yep.
Okay. So it caught me by surprise. And the senior leader from another team said, I really feel like you need to go back and speak to your leader because I think there's some disconnect. And I think there's some untruths happening.
Do you think that that leader came to the other leader? Like your boss came to your other leader, like, hey, can you talk to Tonya for me because I don't know how to handle this?
No, I think the senior leader who was kind of interviewing me during this walkthrough for positions that she had
This being
reached
your
out.
boss.
She had reached out to my boss to say, tell me more about Tonya and would she be a good fit for a role on my team?
And so therefore your boss obviously said no, and therefore you're like, really? So now I'm literally stifled in where I'm at.
Yes.
Interesting. So that's where it gave you the impression either she doesn't want to lose you because she doesn't want to lose someone doing that work, or she just didn't like you. Yeah, interesting. Or she just didn't like you and wanted to sabotage your performance. And so therefore that boss was like, hey, I'm not going to tell you your boss sabotaged you, but I'm not going to not tell you your boss sabotaged you. That's interesting.
Right.
How'd you approach your
So
boss from that?
interesting is I approached it like I needed to follow up with my boss about my touring with the senior leader. And so I asked for a meeting. I, just said, hey, I want to touch base with you. I want to let you know how it goes. And my approach was to be very open, honest, and clear. And
Sorry, real quick clarifying question. Did your boss know that you were applying for that other position?
yes.
Okay, cool. Got it. Yep. Tracking.
So we had a meeting scheduled, and I asked, when the senior leader called you about me, may I ask the things that you considered as my strengths and what you considered as my opportunities? And she told me, and I said, well, I would like for you to know that this walk was very interesting. It did not go as well as any walkthrough I've ever been. And, she felt like you and I had some unclear communication about what I could bring to another team. And so I would like to know how those discussions went, because just based on what you just told me, you didn't have these feelings. And quickly, that my leader, I could tell her tone started getting high. I could tell she was caught off guard, like she had just been caught in a trap. And pretty much proceeded to tell me that no, she gave me great raving, great credit for everything that I had been doing, and that she would put me up against anyone that she had on her team, and that she didn't know why this boss felt like her and I needed to have that communication.
Did you ever consider smoking her out? And by that I just mean like metaphorically, like a bear trap or something like that. Like by just saying, "Oh my gosh, if that's the case, I don't know what you were thinking. Why don't I just go get her and then we'll just do the review right here in front of each other, and if so facto, you can just share everything that you just shared with me with her, and bada bing, bada boom. Oh, is that okay? Oh no, why not? Okay, now let's get to brass tacks."
I thought about it, but then I thought sometimes taking the higher road is a better approach. And I'll tell you why, because you still have to work for these leaders. At some point in your career, you can make the decision, I don't have to work for people I don't want to. And there's sometimes in your career, you kind of figure out how you need to navigate the playing field.
Yeah.
And I think at this time, it wasn't the right time.
So let me recap just so then I can like bring the story full circle. So you first started knowing cracks in the armor when you asked for opportunities for more growth and responsibilities. And this boss more or less said, sure, but then ended up not giving you that. Perhaps at that moment, there could have been an opportunity for you to approach your boss and say, hey, whatever, let's call your boss Jenny. Hey, Jenny, I know we had this conversation about me taking on more responsibilities. The responsibilities I had in mind that I thought could be great were tasks A, B, and C. I noticed that you took them on. Is it possible for me to take on those types of responsibilities moving forward? If not, I love to just maybe learn a little bit more. Maybe there are some ramifications for those activities that I'm maybe not fully aware of that perhaps I could learn from, just so then I can maybe learn your perspective. Would that be okay with you? And then, that ideally, Jenny can share with you the reasons why she didn't give you those tasks. Would that have been, you think, helpful or no?
I think it would have been helpful. I think it would have continued to help me understand how to continue to have conflict conversations, probably, with this boss. What I can tell you is things happen. This leader left
Oh, interesting. How,
a
how
couple
long
months.
did she leave before you left?
Yes. So probably about 2 months in, after this happened, she left the company. And I just want to tell you how things sometimes come full circle that you don't know. I want to share this because I think the more open that you try to be and have the conversations, this is very important. You have a leader or you have a boss, but there's always one person above them. And I wish I would have went and had more open conversations with the leader above my leader. Not a conversation like I'm here to tattletale, nothing like that. I think just really open conversation around, this is where I'm at, this is how I'm feeling. I don't know where we stand, but there seems to be, some type of disconnect between me and my current boss. I tell you this because when that leader left, of course, her position came open and I was a candidate for the position. And I did very well. But my senior leader was hesitant, and I could tell he was very hesitant on putting me in the position. And after further conversation, I learned that my previous boss who left the company had taken credit for all the work I'd been doing and had been saying I wasn't doing on my own work and that I was delegating it out to other people and I was not being given credit for any of it.
How do you go about confronting that?
So that my senior director, the reason my senior director told me that is because I was promoted, not into her role, but I was promoted on that team by him. And he said, I want to let you know something that I've learned. I had a perception about you based on your boss. And shame on me that I should have done a little bit more research to try to get to know you better. Because now that I have, I can clearly understand none of that was truth and it held you back. And I hope I never, ever hold someone back again.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think that's a very fair point, and that's a really good kind of culmination to the story. And it's sad because you were stifled from opportunities. You had your growth stunted because of that. But yeah, I mean, it's so fascinating. Just a leader that doesn't wants to avoid. It sounds like that leader wanted to avoid conflict at all costs, and even worse took credit for the work that you were doing, which is just, that's so tragic and super frustrating. Have you ever seen the movie Office Space?
Yes.
It makes me think of when the consultants come in and they're like, oh, we noticed that there's this one guy who works in the office who, because of a glitch in accounting, he's been receiving checks every 2 weeks, but he was actually fired 3 years ago. Um, so we just took care of the glitch. And they're like, what do you mean you took care of the glitch? Oh, he's just not going to receive his checks anymore. So is anybody going to have a conversation with him? No, he's just not going to receive any checks anymore. And that will figure itself out. It's like, as opposed to telling somebody that they're fired and they've been fired for years, they don't have the conversation. And that's, yeah, it's just,
I think it's just like that, right? I didn't know that someone didn't think I was doing a good job, right? Because my conversations, evaluations, you're doing a great job. You're doing terrific. You know, you're meeting all the expectations. You're going to be the next for promotion. And then you get there and you're going through all these steps, and then you just find these little things that keep happening. And so, you know, do most people move pretty quickly past this and not allow this to happen? I think it's up to each individual where you are. You've got to know in your gut what's right. You know, is it something I need to address right now? But, you know, hindsight, I think, again, like what I've learned is I have learned to be a little bit more direct. I've learned to be more clear in my communication, how I'm approaching it. I think I need to stand up for myself more. And I think I also know that there's always one person above your leader, and make sure that they're coinciding on where you are and how you're being evaluated, because um, I think that could have helped resolve some of this conflict too. Maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't have, but I think things work out as they should. And that's what happened here. But most important lesson is that I never ever want to hold somebody back. And I'm hoping no one ever will. I learned a long time ago in our careers, not every job is right for every person, right? No one gives you the keys to the car, makes you pull into the parking lot and says, you have to go do that job. We all get to decide where we want to work and if we're happy in that job. So I just say, you've got to know what that looks like for you.
that's a really good point of what's your threshold. I'd love to ask the students a question on that topic. Post in the comment section, what would your threshold be for when you would want to move on from a job because of a conflict in the workplace? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn more. I think sometimes people cut shit or cut bait, or I don't know, whatever the term is. They'll leave too soon. They'll think the grass is greener on the other side, and sometimes it's not, in fact, greener on the other side. On the flip side, some people stick with abusive relationships for way too long and are like, gosh, you got to get out of there. And I think for some people, identifying when that time is really hard, but sometimes with mentors, it can be really helpful. So Tonya, who are your mentors? How have they helped you work through some of those workplace conflicts? So when you were in this scenario, did you have any mentors that helped guide you through that situation? How did they help you? How did you approach them?
I did. You know, I had mentors at work that you have to make sure that you're talking to someone who's not close to the situation, that's really like outside of the situation. And so, one, I think is important that maybe you talk to someone within the organization that maybe has had the same similar issues happen before, and they can give you some perspectives. And then, you know, I always say have like your little board of directors, your close friends who are always going to like not give it to you like how you want to hear it, not agree with you, but that they're going to really open your mindset to say, you know, you might have been in the right here, but I just want you to listen to how I'm hearing it and how I'm perceiving it. And so I think that will open up your mindset. You should always have mentors, and it should be someone who's in your corner, someone who's lifting you up, someone who's not afraid to go into a room and say, I value what this person brings to the table. I back this person, and I know that this person, you know, has the highest integrity, the best of interest for our company, and that we'll always be there to support you.
That's nice. That's awesome. And after the whole scenario played out, did they have any kind of lessons learned? Did they help you kind of learn those lessons faster in any way?
I think the lesson was to let go. I think we hold on to people who sometimes do us wrong, or we feel like we were wronged in that moment. And it can stick with us, and it can make us like unproductive. It can make us think negative thoughts about future leaders. It can put you on guard and hold you back from being your true self. So I think that was probably the biggest takeaway is you now have to let this go.
I think that's a really good point. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with as well. And if you don't let it go, you look ridiculous even when you do win. Like one example, this is like a deep cut here, but I'm a huge Indiana University basketball fan. So I love the Hoosiers. I love basketball. And in 2009, they had hired a coach named Tom Crean, a basketball coach named Tom Crean. But in 2008, they had a lot of scandals. They had a lot of their previous coach, Kelvin Sampson, had made recruiting violations, which actually now are totally legal, but at the time were illegal. So the Hoosiers lost scholarships. They lost all these things. There was just payments under the table, all this sort of stuff. And so Tom Crean had to come in and start literally from nothing. He had like 6 scholarships or something, barely could field the team. And eventually he got to a point where he won the Big Ten championship with the Hoosiers. And they beat a team who had an assistant that was on Indiana. They beat Michigan, essentially, in the final game of the year to win the Big Ten championship. And there was an assistant who was at Indiana at the 2008 during all the scandals who is now on Michigan. And as opposed to he celebrating, and as opposed to Tom Crean celebrating with his team, like, we won the Big Ten, this is amazing, he started screaming at this Michigan assistant coach, like being like, you put us in this situation and look where we're at now. And it just, when you watch it, if you watch it back, if anybody's looking for a deep cut, look at Tom Crean freaking out after Indiana wins the Big Ten conference in like 2012 or 2013. It was with like Victor Oladipo and Cody Zeller. You watch that at the very end of the game, it's like, why not celebrate with your team and just like get over the issue? Instead, you hold on, you harbor all these negative feelings towards the assistant coach who you just beat. And it made him look very not classy. And yeah, I guess the point I'm making is let it go, because it's not doing any good with you holding on to it. And if you are able to be successful, bringing it back up with someone isn't going to make your situation any better.
Agree. And that's a good story, because I think it happens to us all the time, right? We talk about it, and we just keep talking about it until someone's like, can we just stop talking about it? And I think that's when you finally just have to release it. And I think, again, talking to your mentor, talking to someone who hears you, you get it out of your system, then you let it go.
Yeah. I love to ask the students a final question. What is the best piece of advice that your mentor's given you as it pertains to handling conflict? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that. So, Tonya, this has been an excellent workshop. I feel like you've given some great insight and wisdom to our students on how to handle conflict in the workplace. Are there any final points that you want to share with our students that they should be thinking about as it pertains to them in their work, handling conflict, or just in general, just making the most out of their careers?
One of I think the quotes that's always held true is, people listen to what you say, but what's truly important is how you say it, and that's how they're going to remember you. And so I may not have that exactly right, Garrett. You might know it straight off, but we are in control of how we handle a situation, in good times and bad times. And so people are always listening, and they're hearing you. And so make sure they hear the right things, and not things that might come from a bad place. And we're always going to be working for someone when we provide service to customers, partners, wherever you are in your job career, people are involved. And conflict is going to happen, but you get to make the choice on taking, the higher road, or being the bigger person and learning from every experience that you have.
That's awesome. Well, Tonya, this is fantastic. Thank you for being here. Students, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your night. See you, everybody.